The rusted bolt protests, but only briefly. Now the lid grates open like a clockwork oyster. Now the warm air trapped inside, sweet with your breath, rises about me. Now the embrace. Now the podcast.
Hey there, Hellspawn. Welcome to another episode of Spawnography. I'm one of your hosts, Pierce Lyden. Here with
I'm George Marston.
We have a special one, George.
Yeah, this is not just any other episode.
It's a crossover episode.
That's right. We have the hosts of Regarding Spawn here, John and David. Hello, friends. You can introduce yourselves.
Oh, yeah, just feel free to talk whenever.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hey, how's it going?
Johnny.
Oh, I go first.
Yeah.
We started a Spawn podcast a couple years ago, or a little, almost, it's coming up on 2 years in August, right, David?
Coming up, yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so I have sympathy and camaraderie with you guys on going through the Spawn and committing to this. It's just such a ridiculous thing, but so awesome and such a crazy thing to get into. But I'm John Fisher, and I'm a Chicago playwright as well, but mainly a spawner. I guess not mainly, sidely.
Nice. And I am David Williams, and I am currently trying to bring back Satanic Panic by placing my extra Spawn issues in little free libraries around town. I put an issue 9 in the free library outside of a church a couple days ago. I put our email address in there, so I'm hoping for some.
I mean, that one's got Angela in it, so
that's what it was. The most holy.
Right.
Pretty wholesome.
I figured I shouldn't put the 350 extra I had in there because they don't want to know about the new ruler of hell.
Well, no spoilers.
They would be disappointed and upset. I think they would be terrified to learn there's a new management down there.
They would. Yeah.
You should have put in number 8 with the other Alan Moore one where he rips through the little girl.
Wow. What an intense issue.
It is, yeah.
I am trying to...
that would get a lot of emails.
Yeah, I'm trying to get as few of the "what the hell are you doing to our children" emails as possible. I'm looking forward to them, but trying to avoid them.
In a way,
sure Alan Moore is sick of them. So,
and Todd McFarlane was getting them at the time too. So, the number of letters columns that are just like, "You should be ashamed of yourself, young man." And he's like, "Listen, I just want to buy some baseballs."
Tony Twist's mom, the concern from her. Was enough to change his entire life.
Yeah.
Slow down his baseball purchases tremendously.
Man.
Yeah, the letters pages are always so intense because you get through the issue and then you just hit by this. You forget because in the modern ones, they're so slight.
They're very short.
Really short.
Less and less. There's so much less back matter now in modern comics. And you get to these and it's like another tome of ads and letters. It's really interesting.
I didn't have the brain space to read 3 out of the 4 of them for this set. At a certain point, they're just like the same thing over and over again. What's the fit?
Is this what you
can't believe it?
I was too focused on the advertisement that I know we're going to have to bring up later.
Yeah, the advertisements in the back are very interesting, and these comics are almost like, what are they, like 28 pages or 30 pages?
They're
the ads. I was looking at them again. I pulled them out just before we were recording. To refresh myself on them, and I thought, Jesus, these are long. And then I realized most of it's toy pictures, which also great for me.
And also Alan Moore art breakdowns.
Yeah,
which are pretty great. It's pretty nice fun to know that like I'm not that much worse of an artist than Alan Moore.
We're very excited to have 2 other members of the Spawn community. Nope, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
The Spawn community.
I came up with Spawnverts to get people converting to Spawn, but also perverts for Spawn. So I'm here for every portmanteau you can put together.
Keep trying Spawn Munity. I don't know, but we're so excited to have you here to talk to two other, of course, Spawn experts. And one thing that I think is interesting is that you guys are way ahead of us on some of the modern comics you're talking about. And I wanted to ask you both, not just necessarily an overview of like, what do you think, but what's cool in them right now? What's getting you excited about the new wave of Spawn stuff that's coming out? Because there's so much.
There really is. There's a lot.
I've been very interested in the things that have new ideas, because a lot of the new things are just, established characters and it's new stories for them. But especially, I mean, we talk about it a lot every time we record, but Rat City is just fucking amazing. I can say fuck, right?
You can say any fucking thing you want. I hope we can say fuck. I've been saying it a lot.
I bleep it out.
Checked for speaking about lots of editing. But yeah, so the new ideas that are just that's what I'm here for, is like something that hasn't been done, at least in Spawn's universe. It could be, something that's been well done. Like Cyberpunk isn't new, but Cyberpunk Spawn is new, and that's what I'm really digging.
I really got
nothing but
into
great things
Spawn.
about Rat City.
Oh, Rat City's it's a hoot. I think it's the first 2 issues are out. Third one's coming out pretty soon.
I think this week. Tomorrow?
I think this week.
Next week?
Yeah, maybe tomorrow.
I think we get Misery soon.
Yeah, I think Misery is either this week or next week too.
Yeah, I really was into, as far as the modern stuff, I would really recommend the early King Spawn. It's really great. It was by Sean Lewis, who's now doing that Pirate Viking Queen, I think it's called, or something like that. But I think got a second printing, but he did the original, like probably 12 to 16 issues of King Spawn, the first 12 to 16, and they're great. And it's really kind of what drew me back into Spawn in the modern time, was me, and led to us doing a podcast. Was I saw the King Spawn when I started buying comics not too long ago before that, because I was kind of late in life to comics, and I saw the cover and I was like, oh my god, it's this puppeteerly, like, Renaissance painting of Spawn almost, and it just got me hooked back into it and got me. The compendiums were coming out at the perfect time. It was just like very well timed out by the Toddfather. He's a good businessman, because it's like, oh, there's the compendium, there's all these 4 new, the Scorch and everything is coming out, and it was a very good time to like kind of be someone looking to get into something. So I got hook, line, and sinker. It kind of reminded me of like when in the 90s when like they released all the, like, strategically re-released like more Star Wars toys and stuff leading up to the prequels, where they were like,
I remember that so
Shadows of the Empire and everything.
Yeah, all that. It reminded me of that, just because there was so much going on, and like it was just a perfect time to get into it and lead up to this. Just this, what they're doing now with the 4, 5 to 10 new titles, however many they're going to be.
Yeah. Now, John, I want to follow up on something you said, but before we do that, we have another guest joining us.
Oh yeah, this is. I mean, at the end of the episode, we always rate puppies, because I've got I currently have 11 of them. So
wow.
How many are named after Spawn characters?
Paradise.
None. I would probably get kicked out of the house if I tried to name any of them after Spawn characters.
You could probably get a Cyan in there. I bet you could squeak one in.
I tried to get a Pazuzu once, and that didn't go over. So.
Pup Zuzu. See, I'm into it.
Their names always change, though, is the problem.
That's fair. John, you said that
hard to keep track of.
Well, at least you don't have 101. What?
102.
At one point, I had like a dozen rats as an accident.
That's an infestation, George.
Yeah. Well,
I think
they
that's
lived
pretty easy
in one
to do,
spot.
honestly.
Yeah. So, John, you said that you got into comics more recently, later in life, and I think that's interesting, because I've been reading comics literally since I could hold things in my hand. That was the first thing my dad was giving me. But also, I think it's interesting because for me, and I think for Pierce as well, Spawn is very nostalgia-driven. I grew up basically with Spawn as part of the landscape of comics and toys and pop culture. I'm interested to know what you knew about Spawn before getting into comics, and how reading Spawn as an adult and then going back to some of those classics, the view you have on that, because that's something obviously I can't experience.
Yeah, I mean, I was just a little too young. Like Spawn was probably just a little too controversial for me, in 1993 and all that. Like I was a little too young, but I was very aware of Spawn. My brother had, I may be misremembering this, but he had like a whole bunch of issues, like probably like between like around a dozen, and I would read them because my brother was a few years older than me. But I mean, I was very aware and like into the toys. Like I had some of the toys because that's stuff you get at Target, and I was going to comic shops and stuff all the time, mainly for, I was really into that, what I was saying, the Star Wars stuff. And so I'd see Spawn. I was really interested in him, but like my mom was probably like, no, you can't do that. But I was old enough when the movie came out. I saw the movie, and I as a kid, I was in like fucking fourth grade. I liked it at the time. I was like, oh, this is cool. This is badass, you know? So I had the movie there. And then, of course, the HBO show, which kind of freaked me out when I tried to watch it as a kid. I tried to watch it a few times, and it kind of scared me. It was just a little too intense.
It can be intense, yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I've revisited as an adult now. I just always had an affection for Spawn. I just remembered the characters really well, like Clown, Violator, like all this made it like a seared into my brain. So I started getting back into comics, or getting into comics, because I'd read like some big like totemic works. Like, of course, like stuff people tell you to read. Like I read a bunch of graphic novels. Like, I read Watchmen. I read like From Hell, and like I read a lot of some Alan Moore stuff, and just like, but I never bought
relevant
them week to
today.
week like I do now. Right? Yeah, exactly. But I never bought them week to week until I probably like 3 years ago when I started going to a shop and like actually doing it. But David's been doing that for a long time, so he's more of the comic book expert. But it's fun to kind of read it now, because reading the older issues, like going through the compendiums, I'm in like the 150s or something right now. It's a hoot. I mean, it reminds me of my childhood, of like, some of the ones I read, or just like being aware of the characters, and like it's just such a time capsule.
There's something so elemental. Really, there's something so elemental about Spawn and kind of all of Todd's output. And I think it's even to this day, just because you always like, we seem to all be around the same age. So we just grew up with it being around, and that even when you weren't, engaging with the comics at the time, you're engaging with the toys, you're seeing them on the shelves, you're seeing the movie. I also was afraid of the HBO show, and I thought I was going to get in trouble for watching it when I was a kid. Like that was like somebody's older brother had a tape, and you were like, oh my God.
My mom gave me a VHS of that for Christmas one year when I was like the year it came out. I had to be 14 or something, and I was like, yo, thanks, Mom.
Badass.
At least somebody's mom liked it.
Yeah.
At least Tony
he was just, I don't think my mom had any fucking idea what it was.
She was like, yeah, here's the Spider-Man.
It wouldn't have mattered.
Johnny always paints me as having been connected to comics much longer than I have. But Spawn definitely was something I wasn't allowed to experience as a child. I only knew it as the action figures that I wasn't allowed to even look at KB Toys. And then it was just like, I got to college, and then I was like, I'm going to do all the things my mom said I couldn't do. So I literally stayed up late watching the fucking Halloween movies, the Jason movies, and then getting into Spawn. So
natural progression there too, honestly. There's a lot of slasher in some of these Spawn stories, especially the middle ones that we're getting into the Blood Feud era, which is what we're talking about today. We're talking about the Blood Feud limited series, which is why, of course, we have some guests. Usually when we do that, we have some guests on with us. In this case, we're going to do things maybe slightly differently than we usually do. If you've listened, and I hope you have, listeners now, then we go a little deep sometimes into the issues. We're going to try and keep it broad strokes so that we're not here for 6 hours and this doesn't turn into a limited series of its own.
Maybe Netflix will buy
it. Blood Feud, the experience.
I must say, I need to take this time I love listening to y'all talk, because Johnny and I tend to talk more in terms of vibes of the issues, and basically everything I know about Spawn in context comes from you. So I'm like, what I need some context. So I gotta find the episode and listen to it. It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense now.
Well, I think that's why it's an interesting pairing of podcasts. That's why I think it's so good that there are multiple Spawn podcasts, and we've heard from people that say they want to start their own, and we seriously encourage that.
Yeah,
I think, I've said it before. I think the spirit of Todd McFarlane says, get out there and do the thing you want to do and make it happen.
Yeah.
So we're about to make it happen talking about Blood Feud. Go ahead, John.
I do have to apologize for our tagline. Our tagline is the world's best Spawn podcast, but we did it kind of as a joke, and we just kept it. And so now it just seems like a diss, but it's totally not.
Well, I'm totally not. If you had started your Spawnography 2 years earlier, Respawn probably wouldn't exist.
We would have just listened to you.
Well, listen.
Honestly, I was like, if there was a podcast, the only reason we really started making it because I was like, how is there not a Spawn podcast where people just read Spawn, And so that's why we started doing it. It was. And I'm glad that there were a couple, and
there are some long running comic podcasts that have small mini series where they'll cover Spawn from time to time, but there was never anything really dedicated solely to it. And so, drunk texting, Johnny was just like, we should start a podcast. And I was like, okay. And then I think both of us maybe kind of hoped the other forgot about it, but acted like the other one didn't. And then, here we are having fun. It's excellent.
And then once you start really, you get too deep and you're just like, well, I committed this long, which is, I think that's what we're at. We're recording wise,
50 issues in, counting limited series. So,
oh really? Okay.
I think something we've read far ahead of we've recorded far ahead of what we released.
Yeah,
because we're really on the spot about.
I've 90% of things, but I don't have the time for it anymore. I'm like, no, which era of Al Simmons are we in today?
Well, that speaks to something that I'm just going to say real quick. I think is really cool about also what you guys do and what you guys talk about, especially talking about and discussing a lot of the more modern comics. I think sometimes people think to get into a character, you want to jump all the way back to the beginning and start there. And I think sometimes that removes context of the, say, Spawn comics that are meant to be speaking to you now and to today's readers and styles. So I think it's really cool that listeners can get both sides from, different perspectives, and that Spawn is even getting discussed this way now is so cool to me.
I think so. I think also too, new fans who don't know not just where to start, but also feel like, oh my God, so starting at number 1 is so daunting because 353 issues is not nothing, not even counting all the miniseries. It's great that week to week, y'all are covering the new releases and really filling people in on okay, what's good this week? What's good about it? And okay, am I going to skip this one? Am I going to, we'll be there eventually. We'll get there.
God willing, and Malbolgia allows.
Yes, you're for a wild ride.
The number one question that we've received
going on right now that's very good. So you'll eventually get John Williams Scorch, and it's been excellent.
It's been beautiful. The number one question we get is where should I start if I want to read Spawn? And it's the hardest question to answer because it's like, well, what do you want to experience? Because Spawn, we like to say that the Spawn cape encompasses everything, and there's something a little bit for everybody underneath it.
Well, the book kind of relaunches itself more than a few times. I mean, as we get closer to issue 50 and the Armageddon arc, we already know, okay, that's going to be kind of a reset point. There's going to be the around the movie Jessica Priest retcon, which is going to sort of be another jumping on point for new readers. I think a lot of the miniseries, if you just want to be I don't know, what's the deal with Spawn, and you picked up Blood Feud because Alan Moore's name is on it,
I just listened to your Violator miniseries episode, and I agree with the fact that if you want to just throw it at somebody as they don't care about Spawn, but maybe you should read some Spawn, you should read the Violator miniseries, because it was, as I said to Thomas Healy on the episode, we talked to him about it on. It's way better than it needs to be.
Yeah, it had a lot going
way
for it.
more fun than it really had any right to be. So,
God, that Violator face on the cover of issue 2, though.
It haunts me. It'll be there forever in my mind.
I cut out some of the cackling that we did about that, and I still couldn't
really
get that
laughed too
episode
long.
under 2 hours.
So, speaking of, we're going to get into Blood Feud now. It's a 4-part limited series, and we're going to try to hit the broad strokes, talk about the highlights and the things we like, and maybe the things we don't like. But before we get into it, Pierce, why don't you go ahead and hit us with the credits for Blood Feud number 1?
So, I am going to give you the credits actually for the 6-page prelude to Spawn Blood Feud that takes place in Spawn number 32. It is a full page that isn't really even fully credits. It just says, be on the lookout for this new miniseries, which will ship monthly beginning next week. Written by award-winning writer Alan Moore with art by Tony Daniel and Kevin Conrad. This miniseries promises to be 100 incredible pages. Which is, we were saying before recording that these are kind of thick issues, and that they are.
They 2 C's.
Now, there was a little bit of confusion about Tony Daniel versus Greg Capullo, like kind of creating the new costume for Spawn, because this is, I think 32 is the issue where we meet where the parasite, the K7 Letha, evolves. And there was in that letters column, Todd does make it seem like, oh, Tony Daniel's going to draw it for the first time ever, and that's not true. That didn't happen. He drew 6 pages of this, which Spawn does not really show up in. So, broad strokes of Blood Feud preludes and nocturnes is our old friend Curse has I
wonder if Neil Gaiman threw that in the lawsuit.
Oh, and you borrowed a title
with Curse is he shows up in the Scorch, and we thought he was a new character because even though I had read those issues, but I read so much at once and so fast I kind of forgot. And I was like, "Who's this new guy? The Scorch or the Curse?" And then we were like, "Uh-oh!" And then we totally lost all credibility. So
yeah,
it happens every 2 weeks or so. We lose all Spawn credibility.
Yeah, every time we find a Curse in the wild now, we're like, damn it, it's a new guy.
There's some episode that just released, right? I was like, who drew this cover? And it was Greg Capullo. Whose initials are those? Greg Capullo. But legendary Spawn artist Greg Capullo.
Curse has a habit of being strung up by whoever happens to be fighting him, and so here he's been stolen from Spawn's alley, and he's been taken by this guy Sansker, who keeps like interrogating him and telling him that he's not like telling him the right answers to the questions that he's asking, and Curse is very confused until he tortures him enough. He rips his body apart. I guess that's where Curse gets the idea, because he does the same thing to Spawn later on. But then he asks him how often have you personally seen him drink the blood of small children? And Curse, says dozens, maybe hundreds of times. And then we get one kind of big splash of Spawn right at the end. I really breezed through that, so if anybody has anything they want to chime in on for that, it's just a very introductory. Sansker is a sort of gothic kind of vampire man, so he lives in a bell tower. There are bats.
He's got the there's that one shot of his face where his eyes are like going in 2 different directions, and it's wild. He's just manic.
Yeah, there's some choices made, which that's so bizarre, because also too, he doesn't appear like this in the actual miniseries at all.
Yeah, no, he doesn't.
His hair seems much shorter. He seems much more put together. He's an absolute unit. And I think
he's kind of a chode in the blood. Once we get into Blood Feud, he's got some width to him.
Oh yeah.
All right. So that's going to bring us to Spawn Blood Feud Part 1. Story by Alan Moore, art by Tony Daniel and Kevin Conrad, letters by Tom Warzikowski, color by Todd Broker, dedicated to Leah and Amber Moore, and all young urban monsters everywhere.
Yeah, and those are, of course, Alan Moore's daughters.
Yeah.
And are they the young? Are they also young urban monsters? Is that what the implication there is?
I'm assuming.
That seems like something Alan Moore would call his kids, like as a term of endearment. Like that's the most Alan Moore thing I could imagine.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, are these your daughters, Alan?
The only thing more he could say in praise would be that they're good little witches.
That's right. That's exactly right. Speaking of urban monsters, though, this comic really, for a lot of it, is more horror than a lot of what we get in Spawn at this time in the main series. Spawn's been getting into body horror and stuff off and on since the start of the run, especially given Al Simmons' condition and, being in a charred corpse of a body. But here, this is a straight up monster movie. We get that wub 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 lettering, which
I didn't know they had dubstep in 1995.
Let alone, well, I mean, K7 Letha does sound like a dubstep DJ.
Yeah, it does. It'd be a sick name.
I think you now have a new side project, both of you.
Right.
So many.
So these kids are talking about being vegetarians and they're hanging out. And this kid, first off, looks like Tim Hunter to me, which would be a very funny Alan Moore
from
thing
Books of Magic. Is Alan Moore making fun of Grant Morrison here?
Is Alan Moore making fun of Neil Gaiman here? I don't know.
Well, I'm only saying that because Grant was a vegetarian.
Oh, that's right,
and would have been a vegetarian kind of famously in the pages of Animal Man only a few years prior to this. So
right.
And
maybe, but they get the hell up.
I just like that it's to jump ahead a little bit, that every time in this issue we get the sort of monster cam first person shooter action, they get absolutely destroyed while talking about the fucking what's the word? It's right there. Food chain. They're talking about the food chain every time.
Yes,
and I just think that's hilarious that people are talking about, we're on top of the food chain. Oh, whoops, we just got eaten.
Again, very Alan Moore sort of like, well, here's the expectation. We're the top of the food chain. And again, being proven right immediately that they're not. And I do like this first person perspective. I like all the wub, wub, wub. It's somehow very Lovecraftian.
Yeah.
And then, of course, on this bottom of the first murder sequence, there's that trashed out, shredded Kermit the Frog.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, that's devastating.
It's just destroyed. I had a Kermit.
We all did, right? Kermit?
I never had a Kermit.
Wait, you never had a Kermit?
No, I did have a Kermit. I feel like everyone. I feel like that's like a classic. Without that time, you gotta have a Kermit.
And to see it shredded like that, just another Alan Moore stab against the heart of innocence.
No, it ain't easy being green.
It hurts. It hurts me more than the removed fingers that are floating around just above it.
Yes. Oh, Alan Moore and the little chopped off fingers.
Oh man.
It's crazy. This book also amps up the violence level of like early issues of Spawn, like way further than it has been, partly because Tony Daniel is a lot less cartoony in the way that he draws. Capullo and McFarlane, they're such caricatures that even when terrible things happen, you're like, oh, okay.
And you see Tony Daniel try to copy that in some of the issues he does of the main series. And I think his work here is a lot better because I guess he probably had a lot more time to get it done. Because they weren't doing
bi-weekly issues.
Yeah. But we get to a page of the K7 Letha itself, spread out, dreaming of hell. And the implication that's going to go on through this story is that it's kind of a bait and switch. You think that the K7 Letha is the monster that's attacking everyone. And the storytelling choice of cutting to a straight double splash page of that after the murder sequence kind of as directly leads you to believe that. And then you see Al sulking in the alley, feeling sorry for himself while everyone's around him because he's had these nightmares.
I do like that there's the direct juxtaposition of this terrible murder happens and then we're literally getting a dialogue about doing the exact same kind of murders. And so we're not sure whether we're supposed to know if that's a 1-to-1, or if like the Fleabiacs that are getting run down over here are like metaphorical Fleabiacs, or if they're actual Fleabiacs. So there's a lot of we come into this, being like, do we know what he's doing, or is he just doing the obvious? And I found that a fun way to start the series.
It's a very Alan Moore kind of juxtaposition. I'm going to stop saying it's a very Alan Moore thing, because this whole fucking comic is just full of Alan Moore stuff, including, kind of poetic dialogue. But
he literally just starts talking about the Tims there in the middle.
Yeah.
Basically.
There's, I think by opening it as that, like, the case of Enletha dreaming, it does just throw everything into flux, right? I think actually, in a weird way, the prelude is less good than the rest of it. Like, it doesn't really help for us to meet Sanskar there.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Like, no, it doesn't. It kind of spoils it.
Yeah, because when we get his introduction, like in a little while, in a few pages, it's much more effective. Alan Moore also one of the actually has Sam and Twitch doing police work, which is rare.
Not just eating donuts and handling files.
And
just like balancing cigarette ash in impossible lengths.
Right,
like falls into his coffee and he just drinks it anyway.
Yeah, we call that the bullseye.
I'd say that the miracle of this is not that Sam and Twitch are doing police work, but that Sam is actually doing police work,
right?
Instead of just Twitch.
Twitch isn't carrying the weight of his partner on his shoulders. I do like the introduction of Sanskar
moment at the end.
Yeah, he does.
He kind of gets to be the hero.
I do like the introduction of Sanskar here because it kind of reflects the reputation of Al Simmons as a world famous murderer.
Yeah.
Where Sanskar is a world famous monster hunter. I have to tell you, every single human being who considers themselves a quote unquote monster hunter would love this reception from any cops anywhere. They would just be so happy to have a press conference and be taken seriously that there are vampires in New York City, which is what John Sanskar is claiming here. He says, Vurdalak, Nosferatu, vampires. And he starts showing slides of Spawn, images captured of Spawn. Now, I mean, he's not really far off in a lot of ways. He's got the big red cape like Dracula.
Yeah.
He's undead, though, I don't know if Sanskar knows that necessarily. And you can see how he's drawing the parallel. And this is interesting because Spawn's really being exposed to the world here in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
True. Yeah, I like that he's called an extra normal hazard.
Extra normal is great.
And they got a really good photo
poster. I want the poster for that wall right over there.
I kind of do too. That would be sick.
I do also like that, like, Sanskar's very specifically calling out things that seem like they might have been levied at him in the past too. And he's like, no, this is on somebody else. Which just, comes more and more later throughout the series.
How do you know all
the very specific issues he has with this very specific extra normal hazard seem a little too calculated to really be believable.
Yeah, one of the things though that I think is a bit of a frustration, and we've mentioned this many times on our show, is that we're back to questions Spawn. Where Spawn is, what is this? Who am I? What is he saying? What's going on? And you're like, oh, God damn it, Al, just...
But unlike normal question Spawn, Alan Moore question Spawn just, like, gets through it real quick, like. Because that's of the early Spawn, while I love early Todd McFarlane Spawn, my favorite early Spawn is not written by Todd McFarlane Spawn. Like that Grant Morrison Spawn, hell yeah! I might actually throw the Grant Morrison Spawn at somebody as an introductory point, because
it's a great two-parter.
He just gets through it, like,
and because you can understand anti-Spawn versus Spawn. It just you're like, oh, got it, cool. Angels have elemental fire. Don't worry about it.
Anti-Spawn is the coolest motherfucker in the world.
David's a huge fan of Anti-Spawn.
His belt buckle with the Spawn logo that has the big red slash through it.
A+.
Who are you gonna call?
I need that belt buckle.
What'd you say, John?
I said that David's a huge fan of the purple suited Redeemer, or I guess anti-spawn.
Oh yeah,
Anti-spawn.
yeah.
Because now he's all blue, but it's nice to see the. I like the original one too, and they recently made a page puncher, one of those little miniature action figures of the old school anti-spawn.
That guy doesn't work right now.
I gotta track that down.
I do like the splash page of Spawn here lamenting, saying, or what are they saying? I'm some sort of monster or some sort of vampire. And his like costume is tearing away from his face, and he's tearing the poster apart. Pretty cool Tony Daniel splash page. What do y'all think of the Tony Daniel splash pages here throughout this? Because that's kind of the life's blood of Spawn artistically, is those big splash pages that hammer the moments home.
I love them. I think they're fun. They're like that. They're that too much of the late 90s that I just like. As soon as I see it, I'm like, I'm there. You got me. I think they're great.
It's a very specific sort of time and place, and Todd Broker's colors really work here. I don't know that we've seen him on another issue before.
In our release order, I don't think so. In our recording order, yes, we have.
Okay, fair enough. Well, this is the first time, and I like the red palette he's using. He really offsets it with that blue-green in the background that comes back a lot. And after Spawn laments, he says, "This has nothing to do with me. I can't figure it out. I gotta hold on." He passes out, and we get another wub point of view murder scene.
And some more talking about being on the top of the food chain. There's always a bigger fish.
That's right.
I don't know that I love during the sort of wub pages. I don't know that I love the red. I think it's a lot, and I think I get it. I get it that it's like a pretty bloody scene, but it just doesn't feel like it has enough balance. And I would have liked for there to be, I don't know, just a little bit more balance. I mean, we're in this era of computer coloring at this point where I do think that sometimes things get a little bit washed out when they're too samey. But I'm nitpicking a comic book from 30 years ago. So
they are also very like this section. It goes on for like 6 pages or something like that.
Yeah, it's really long.
It is.
I guess it's only 4 pages, but it's very concentrated and it's very kind of the same thing.
It's those horizontal repeated panels, and it is that like slasher movie view in a way. But I think my favorite thing about Tony Daniel's art throughout this whole series is the way he draws the K7 Letha on its own.
Oh yeah,
like next page of it sitting on those skulls. That's so fucking metal.
Yeah. Which is basically what the Hamlet homage on the cover is.
Yes, exactly. Alas, poor Hellspawn. I knew him well.
I also love.
I was wondering because there's a Spawn action figure that kind of has a skull throne. I wonder if they like how much of the inspiration from this it took, because this might be the first. Because I know he has the throne of trash, but he doesn't really have the throne of skulls.
Mm-hmm.
This could be his first Throne of Skulls. Throne of Skulls, awesome band name. Has to be banned. I'm sure it is. If it's not, it's about to be. It rules, and I love that shot of the cape all unfurled in the back.
Yeah.
Like I like when they
cape.
It almost looks like have y'all seen Nope?
Yeah,
when they
like the Nope picture,
it does. It kind of looks like that to me in a cool way. I really like it. It calls back to some of Todd's years on Venom. I love the way Tony Daniel handles its weird, twisted, raggedy spindliness, especially on its own, and I like the way he does the skulls.
Yeah, I love sort of like skins by themselves. Like that's the thing that drew me into Harrow County when it first came out.
Yeah,
there's like that skin that they fold up and put in a dresser drawer. I love skins without anything inside of them. It's disgusting.
That's Tyler Crook, right? Tyler Crook on that. Yeah, so good, so good. He's been great for a long time.
I like that. The last page that we get, we realize that maybe Spawn is the one who's been committing these murders that we're seeing the first person view of. I like Tony Daniel leaning into the I love it when Todd does it too. Really using the expressiveness of the mask and the eyes.
Yeah. We like to refer to it as the round eye of surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the cliffhanger, is that we think Spawn has murdered someone and he's now surrounded by the police. And Spawn thinks he has too. Kind of one of those classic pranks where you get somebody drunk and they wake up in a motel covered in corn syrup with your friend playing next to them, acting like they've been murdered. We've all been there.
Like you do.
One of the classic pranks.
That old chest of drawers.
I do like that. So as we move into issue 2 of Spawn Blood Feud, we'll do all the back matter stuff at the end, as the back matter tends to be. But as we get into Spawn Blood Feud number 2, even the cover leans into that, like, kind of push and pull between the K7 Letha itself and Spawn, which I think is really, really fun, because it, especially in this era, and as probably the next 20 to 25 issues are going to go after this miniseries, Spawn is really struggling with his relationship to that costume and what it means that it is a symbiote, that it is a parasite, that it is from hell, and that he kind of isn't, even though he's made of necroplasm. And so those ideas aren't completely fleshed out just in this miniseries. It's, again, dozens of issues after that really bear that out more, but it's really cool to see it in a certain way. And this is going to be, hold on, let me do the credits real quick and then we'll keep going. This will be Spawn Blood Feud Part 2, story by Alan Moore, art by Kevin art by Tony Daniel and Kevin Conrad, letters by Tom Orzechowski, colors by Todd Broker, with additional thanks to Electric Pickle and Philip Timper, who Philip Timper will become the first Redeemer.
The anti-Spawn. Yeah, he was the Redeemer. Also, we know from previous issues that he's guested in, he does the digital effects, like the bubbles of the water and some of the backgrounds and stuff like that.
And like the clouds, if you see some cloud stuff, that was kind of his deal. This one's dedicated to Melinda Gebbie, the Champ Vamp.
That is, of course,
Alan
Moore's wife and occasional co-creator.
Yeah, they would not be married at the time that this came out. They get married in 2007. I have no idea if Leah and Amber Moore are their kids. But
we could have looked that up, but we didn't.
Why don't we just call him up? Call him, hey, Mr. Moore.
Alan Moore.
His landline.
Whose kids are these? Actually, I think you have to go through his
landline.
Kids.
That's all he's got. It's a landline or a Ouija board.
That's that reminds me.
You got to call him like.
I had a friend. So unfortunately, R.I.P. Raleigh Crump, but one of the old Imagineers. Apparently, Raleigh Crump, his only presence anywhere was just his phone number, and like he would literally be like, "Tell people to just call me." And one of our friends was like, "We got Raleigh Crump's phone numbers," and I really wish I had called it before he had died, but old guys and their landlines, they love them.
Steve Albini used to do the same thing too. You could just look up Steve Albini's phone number and just give him a call and ask him questions.
I bet he fucking hated that.
It's like no, anti-Bill Murray.
Really nice. Yeah. Oh yeah. Instead of "you'll never believe this."
This never happened.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, speaking of things that never happened, Spawn believes he murdered someone at the start of this. Yeah. And he's leaping away from the cops. Really love this opening splash page with the chains everywhere and the cops shooting at him.
I do love that Alan Moore kind of takes the pundits and it's like, nah, fuck that. We're not going to do the pundits. We're going to do one show with one little Weasley guy and an actually pretty dope jacket. I'd wear that jacket.
Yeah, it's not bad. He's got a certain look.
Yeah.
He's got a weird car salesman. What is that movie about car salesmen? Let's not go off on a tangent.
Used cars?
Thinking about it.
I think you're talking about the Muppet movie where they pay what the sign says and they get their $12 trade-in for whatever they get.
So this is the second Muppet reference in 2 issues. Just saying.
Yeah. Hey, the Muppets rule. So
okay, Muppet Spawn.
I would be here for Muppet Spawn. Yes.
I would 100% read that.
If they could do
Gonzo's Violator.
Obviously. Yeah.
That's very good.
Let's see.
The only humans are Sam and Twitch.
Who would be Spawn out of them? Well, obviously Bert and Ernie are going to be Sam and Twitch.
Yeah.
Wait, that's true.
That's maybe a stretch for Muppets.
Not Waldorf and Statler.
No, I think
if they had to be Muppets proper and not just hints and creations,
Statler and Waldorf. Statler and Waldorf are Dorf. Well, what am I saying?
Yeah,
they are just the one TV pundit who the conspiracy theories.
Oh, Rock the Shock Fennel.
Yeah.
Who is a demon?
Yeah, we'll get to that.
We will learn.
Spoilers for like issue 307 or something like that.
Honestly, he brings up some good points. I'm just saying. Of the three, because there's also the first queer character in all Spawn.
The
E Entertainment
guy.
Yeah, the E Entertainment guy. And then there's the first lady who she works for CNN, but
yeah,
that would be Miss Piggy, obviously.
If Kermit were Al Simmons, then Piggy would probably be Wanda.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
But does that mean then that Fozzie Bear is Terry Fitzgerald? Or is Fozzie Sam?
My head.
Who would you pair with? I mean, that would probably make like Sam Eagle would then be Twitch because you got Fozzie and Sam Eagle because Sam Eagle doesn't.
So Sam is playing Twitch, and I'm lost already.
It could be Dr. Honeydew.
Beaker and Honeydew.
They could be Sam and Twitch.
But actually, that works pretty well.
Twitch kind of has the hair,
yeah.
Wow. How long have we been talking about
Not
this?
long enough.
It feels like forever.
Because then you got Crazy Harry. You got Crazy Harry. Who's going to be Crazy Harry? Is going to be probably Curse. He's definitely Curse.
That's a good point. Then you got New Zealand as Tremor.
Oh yeah. This with his boomerang fish.
This is only vaguely related, but my favorite joke on the entire planet is from the Muppets. Like, remember when they did The Office, but it was the Muppets? And there's a cold open where all the Muppets are trying to find a date to like the Emmys for Miss Piggy. So they're calling a bunch of like agents of actors and stuff trying to get her a date. And somebody brings up Keanu Reeves, and Kermit says, "Throw everything you got at Keanu." And there's a picture of Keanu like up on the wall, and New Zealand throws his fish, and I lose it every single time.
That's pretty good.
Anyway, welcome back to the Muppets podcast.
Yes, Muppetography. So we're getting to know John Sansker a little bit. He's very concerned about extra-normal hazards, which is apparently a euphemism for vampire. He tries to use the V word, tries not to use the V word too lightly.
Yeah.
We get more cool Spawn perching on a ledge. Another great Tony Daniel pinup.
Double page spread too.
I know, in the rain this time. He must catch his death of cold.
Yeah, it's gotta.
But he's going to visit an old friend.
Mm-hmm.
We learn, and that's going to backfire on him, as it's actually a trap that he's being lured into by Sansker.
Mm-hmm.
He says, "Good evening, little monster. I'm Death." Something I like about Sansker quite a bit is that he is not a cyborg, which is very rare for Spawn villains.
Especially to this point.
7 of 8 are like cyborgs or mafia cyborgs or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see also another supernatural element being brought in here. Something that we've heard before that, Todd, especially at this phase of Spawn,
not super
far less interested in than like the world famous government murderer aspect.
It's funny because this stuff actually plays into kind of modern Spawn right now because
with blood, right?
Yeah, everyone lost their powers after 350, so the vampires are now the most powerful beings because they don't derive their power from heaven or hell. So, and they use the same things as in this, where all the things you've heard in vampire media don't actually work. And it's Roy McConville, who writes Spawn now, he definitely does those deep pulls. So I'm sure he read this and was pulling this from this. I'm sure.
Hell yeah.
Which is interesting because we know Sansker doesn't really come back a whole lot. I know he had plans for Hong Kong in 2010, but I don't think they came to fruition.
2070.
Oh, 2070.
So we're still a few years away.
So we're okay. Well, I was way ahead. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. I have dyscalculia.
So you can stop the phone call to Xi Jinping right now. He should be fine.
Okay. I'll just have to remember in 69 years to call them.
Nice.
Yes. Nice.
So one thing that does kind of keep happening in this book, and it is the way it's structured, but it does feel like maybe they didn't need 100 incredible pages. Maybe they could have gotten away with like 80 incredible pages.
Yeah.
Is that some of the characters just start kind of having the same conversation as they need to learn things, and all of them are extremely disjointed. So like Sam and Twitch now are like trying to find out about vampire shit after we, the reader, already know a little bit more of what's going on. This is a general pet peeve I have, which is that any sort of fiction is a little bit boring if you, as the audience member, either know more than the characters, can't really be surprised by anything new that they find out, or just have to hear exposition again.
So can I just say that that's the reason that I have that I hate Shakespeare, because Shakespeare is largely based on dramatic irony, which means that you're supposed to know more than everybody else in the play does. And I fucking hate Shakespeare.
Wow.
I should love Shakespeare because it's chock full of dick jokes, and I love a good dick joke. I mean, show me somebody who doesn't love a good dick joke, and I'll show you somebody who needs to stay far away from me. But
so you're saying Shakespeare's chock full of nuts?
That's right. He's a coffee.
Yeah, he puts me to sleep though, so that's
It does.
We know that Todd McFarlane also does not read Shakespeare.
Yeah, Todd McFarlane, not a fan.
Doesn't read anything.
Yeah,
at this point in time.
True.
So Sansker and Spawn have a big knockdown drag out fight.
Yeah.
That ends with Spawn potentially believing he's a vampire, ripping his costume off and trying to lock it in a chest.
Yeah, just like at the pier, just like grabbing it by little bits. He gets one of the unhomed men to help him out, and he's like, "I don't like this, Al. It's screaming in my head." And it's like, "Yeah, that's just how it talks. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, don't worry. I live with that shit constantly.
It's just how
Here's where we get some Phil Timper art on the bubbles off the chest as it's thrown in the water. Alan Moore likes to throw people off this pier. He did it to Clown.
Yeah.
He's doing it to the Letha.
It's classic.
Yeah.
Listen, you gotta have some drama down by the docks.
Yeah, that's right.
I like.
Also, it's a little funny that it just takes this chest to contain it. I was just like, you think it'd be something a little tougher than that, but I don't know.
Apparently, its weakness is small locks.
Yeah, it's got to be it.
Unless it's the all of the stickers from different places in America.
That's holding it tight.
It's maybe it's Gaia power imbued within the destination stickers.
It's totally reinforced. Yeah,
I do like this page of the Letha underwater. I think it's real cool looking.
Oh yeah.
Yes, when it's busting out and. Oh, yeah, so Todd goes to sleep. Todd, oh my God. At least once an episode, I'm going to say Todd instead of Spawn.
Okay.
Spawn goes to sleep in the alley and he wakes up to some of the night people being like, yeah, good night, buddy. And then he has the dream of the Letha underwater escaping. He's got that gaping hole in his chest still.
Yeah.
Which is going to be prodigious for him because he's about to get stabbed in the chest by a stake by his pals, the night people, who think that he is indeed a vampire.
Mm-hmm. They call him a blood-sucking leech.
Yeah. Once again, my favorite page of this whole thing, like you said, Pierce, is I think it was Pierce or was it David who said that the page of the Letha underwater.
That was
really cool.
Pierce.
Yeah, it's really cool though. Right. That's going to bring us to Spawn Blood Feud Part 3, story by Alan Moore, art by Tony Daniel and Kevin Conrad, letters by Tom Orzechowski, colors by Todd Broker, with additional thanks to Philip Timper, in memory of Sylvia Moore. So that is Alan Moore's mom,
who had just recently passed. It seems by the look of the
R.I.P.
Sylvia.
R.I.P. Yeah.
I do like that this issue starts with the big hulking unhomed man just going just
also
waving a little wave like Al doesn't see him.
This is also going to open with another like Spawn trope, which is if you have a problem, maybe light it on fire.
Yeah.
Pretty good thing to do. Happens in like the HBO animated series, happens in the movie, I think, too.
Yeah.
Just getting lit on fire. Also, does that just mean that there's a guys like who are just like, oh, gotta fill up the gas canister today?
Yeah.
Like every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Todd, again, that's twice now. Spawn gets lit on fire a lot himself. We saw it in both the Batman crossover and the Harry Houdini sort of side, same exact plot issue that came right around the same time. Here, I really like the way Tony Daniel draws it, and the colors really work with it. And of course, Tom Orzechowski, the maestro, with an incredible lettering effect.
Yeah, super sick.
Fun fact is, I told him where the bathroom was at SpawnCon, so that's
nice.
Wow, hero!
I know. I mean,
Thank you.
I went up to him. I was like, "Great
God
panel."
knows.
I asked a great panel. He's like, "Oh, thank you. Do you know where the bathroom is?" And I pointed him. So
Wow. And you'll always share that with him.
always.
One time at Heroes Con about 10 years ago, I met Matt Fraction in the bathroom, and I was so awkward that we were both washing our hands, and I said, hello. And he just kind of said, okay. And I was like, okay, that's good. And then I realized I'm in the bathroom, and we walked out, and that was the end of it.
After I saw a press screening of Multiverse of Madness, I'm in the bathroom, and it was still COVID times of wearing a mask. And I look over, and there's a small guy with glasses on, and he like, the top half of his face looks really familiar. And then I walk out, and it was Griffin Newman who played Arthur on the tip.
Oh, from
The other half of his face.
Who also is one of my favorite podcasters. And then I very, very awkwardly introduced myself, and then I apologized for it on Twitter. and he was like, oh, that was far from the weirdest thing that's ever happened with somebody who's a fan of the show. So I was like, okay,
that's
cool.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
And also bad to hear. Jeez.
It's worrisome. It's worrisome.
And I don't have a celebrity encounter story, so
wow.
Sad.
Wow.
Not yet. Not with that attitude.
At least not a bathroom encounter.
You gotta let Bill Murray steal your French fries.
Wow. Yeah.
He'll come up and eat.
You gotta let him
sandwich.
do that.
Man, if somebody tries to take a bite out of my sandwich, I'm going to forget the fact that I'm a pacifist and punch them right in the face.
Yeah. I'm not going to care that it's Bill Murray. The headline won't be "No one believes Bill Murray bit my sandwich." It's going to be "Everybody knows that I punched Bill Murray."
Yeah.
I would punch him and then say, nobody's going to believe you.
Finally get him back.
That's right. So Spawn gets lit on fire. He freaks out and runs to the docks because there are only two locations in New York City. That is alleys and there's docks.
They're right next to each
I know
other.
this.
Three. There's
Tall
alleys, docks, and then the penthouse offices of tall buildings with
right.
70
Giant
foot
windows
on the edges. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Pierce and I were just together in New York for several days celebrating a friend's bachelor party, and we kept saying, we're going to do some spawnography stuff. We're going to do this spawnography thing, and none of it ever happened.
No.
So don't look out for anything. Keep your eyes not peeled for that. Spawn jumps in the water. He puts himself out, and he rushes to the bottom and finds the K7 Letha. And this is where we find out
I like
that she is Letha.
But she starts talking to him again, and he's like, shit, I forgot that I did that.
He's away for
this again.
one night. So he jumps in the water. I really love this page of him bonding with it as it forms this like giant fist in the water.
Yeah, it's cool.
And he rises up. He's still got the stake in him through the costume.
Yeah.
You'd think he could have taken care of that first. He runs in a clown. with maybe the second most demented mouth Clown has ever had. First most demented being on the cover of Violator #2, where he is the Uwu Clown.
He's
got
so
about
many
6,000 teeth.
Yeah, I know. It's
but
disturbing.
Still less teeth than if the Toddfather had drawn him. So
that's true. No one knows how many teeth a clown has, and that's in both this comic and in the real world. No one's been able to catch one to count.
Apparently, nobody knows if Twitch has a chin either.
That's right.
Yeah, there's some hilarious no chin twitches in this. There's a few times he looks like just a fucking worm.
Worm Twitch.
Yeah.
That's another variant figure.
I've spent this entire time trying to figure out what the hands on this third panel of it's just Sam, but there's hands. Are those Twitch's hands? Is he trying to make like I'm gonna choke you motions, or hands? What are the hands doing? What are they doing?
There's a lot of hand stuff in Spawn, and we've maybe talked about it too often, where things are framed with like people extending their hands and gripping and stuff.
Well, it's somebody's job.
It's a very strange one. That's right.
That is so weird.
It is a weird panel.
It's a weird motif just to bring back, because that's the first person we keep seeing the whole time of somebody getting killed, right?
Yeah.
Why bring it back there? It doesn't really make a ton of sense. Especially
we do know that Twitch is a stone cold killer with a heart of steel.
That is true, and a very hot wife.
Yeah,
that's right.
I just realized that Twitch is reading a tabloid, and there's a picture of Spawn in the tabloid, and it says "Father-in-law vampire," or "Win a date with the vampire hunter."
Yeah. Wow, win a date with Sansker. I bet that turns out great for everyone. That's almost as good as winning a date with Rodney Alcala, which is a reference to something only the most dark-hearted of us will understand.
I didn't understand it, but I would love to eventually know.
Rodney Alcala was a serial killer who was on the dating game.
Oh, great.
Oh, okay.
Great. Good job. Good job, reality television.
Yeah. I like, not to go back too far, but I do like that Clown is just hanging out with a Kmart bag. I don't even know what he's got in it, but he's got it.
You do. Yeah, you do. They reveal it in a couple of pages.
That's right. Oh, that's right. That's right.
It's got his
makeup.
His Washington D.C. disguise in it.
That's right.
That's exactly full suits at Kmart in the 90s. I'm gonna have to say something about that.
No,
I can tell you for a fact that they were not, and I know that because I was working at Kmart around the time that this comic was coming out. So,
well, I know that we always got my Easter suits from Sears, so that's what
you had to go to Sears. Target only started having suits. I remember when I saw a suit at Target the first time. I was like, "There's a suit at Target."
Speaking of suits, I also like that they specify that Sansker wears a Hugo Boss suit. So I'm assuming there's some sort of Nazi entanglement intentionalized there.
Certainly making him come off real cool. I mean, geez, Hugo Boss, are we canceling ourselves now?
I like that Violator is just trying to explain more. He's trying to give some answers.
Yeah.
To Al here. He's an extreme hazard instead of an extra normal hazard. Is that better or worse?
I think that's which one is that? A code red? What was it?
I do like his Danny DeVito costume.
Mm-hmm. That makes him look like Tony Twist.
He does look pretty much just
Vito Dracula Govano. I like that what we see when we cut back to Twitch, we see that what he's doing is actually digging deeper into Sansker. Mm-hmm. We find out that his name is also, at some point, his name was Jean Sancoeur, which, as my former French teacher girlfriend would tell me, is essentially just almost French for Heartless John, which is his sort of vampire name, as we'll discover soon.
She your girlfriend while she was your French teacher? Is that what you just said?
No. She used to teach French.
Oh, those.
And she's my girlfriend.
Two things.
Sorry.
Two things. As far as I know,
I heard that it was
he has
one
never
thing.
dated anyone who she taught French to.
I'm certain.
That would have been wildly inappropriate.
She must have never taught in Oklahoma.
Nope. Oh, no. I know that reference.
The little known outside of Oklahoma. Oklahoma has a wild amount of teacher arrested for student relationships. Like 6 or 7 of them happened at my high school.
Whoa!
Six or seven? I didn't even know this.
6 or 7, yes.
Wow. Something like that happened at mine. My favorite English teacher had a serious problem where he was trading cocaine to students for favors. So
Jesus.
I hate that because he was like the punk rock teacher and he had like a black flag tattoo and shit. So everybody thought he was the coolest dude. And so beware of teachers that want you to think they're the coolest dude.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
The New York City cannibal cop went to my high school.
Oh, geez.
Wow.
So like as a student or as a teacher?
As a student.
Or man.
Wow.
So
we all went to fucked up high schools.
So did Ray Romano.
That's scary.
Same guy.
They're the same person.
Same guy.
Never saw them both in the same place. Just saying.
That's right.
So I have a question about Twitch breaking in with a credit card. So Twitch, as we know, has 7 children, right? Do you think that by himself he would make the Steve Martin joke from Roxanne of it doesn't like Discover, it only takes Visa? I imagine that Twitch would have made that joke while he was breaking into this office because it
was at least in his head.
I think that Twitch was sad that Sam wasn't there for him to do it.
It was like I'm gonna have to remember to tell him.
I thought you were going to ask if I thought Twitch was drowning in credit card debt.
Yeah, that's too. That's what my head's at.
Well, the problem is that Sam and Twitch case files kind of undermine that because they live in a very nice brownstone there.
Well, we all know where the New York City budget's going right now.
It's all going to Twitch Williams.
Top mayor.
I'll stick it for Twitch.
Right.
I like this panel of Sansker sneaking up on Twitch, though.
Yeah,
I like how scary he looks.
It has a nice little foreshadowing of like you don't think to examine why is he naked until later when he explains why he's naked. And I didn't even clock it until the second time through, and I was like, oh hey, look, he's naked there. He must have been doing something.
Yeah, and so Spawn's running away. When Sam gets back to the office, Sansker's just leaving.
Mm.
And he walks in and he finds poor Twitch all crunched up and slashed up, stuffed under the desk.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah,
poor
just like
Twitch.
Awful.
Also, Sam is yelling for a medic, but I don't know that anybody's there.
It is.
I mean, I guess that's probably a reaction, though.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I mean, it's a dark page. It's freaking out. Very inconsistent portrayal of Twitch throughout this, like the cartooning of his face. We noted before, sometimes he doesn't have a chin. It's a little off, although I will say it's just dawning on me, and it's weird that it dawned on me looking at him all pretzeled up, that he looks quite a bit like R. Crumb.
Oh, yeah.
In Tony Daniels.
Yeah, you're right.
Under Tony Daniels' pen.
It does.
Interesting.
Also, his fingers look like sausages.
Yeah. Yes, they do. Swollen. So swollen. Sansker ambushes Spawn.
He tells Scotty to make him a he tells Spawn that he made him a convertible.
Yep. And he manages to basically get Spawn trapped in the car and send it careening off of the pier.
No, again.
Back to the pier.
So yeah, third time. Because Spawn picked up a dumped hot-wired car because he needed to get back up to the pier where the K7 Letha is. Because he was like, I need to get back in my suit. So this at least has a reasoning for why he's back at that pier.
Yes. And that brings us to Blood Feud number 4, the final issue. Look at that. We managed to do it without spending 3 days on it.
Hey,
yes.
We're not done yet. Man.
And this
better
is
than we usually do, too. I'm very glad. So,
this is a story by Alan Moore, art by Tony Daniel and Kevin Conrad, letters by Tom Warzakowski, colors by Todd Broker. Additional thanks to Philip Timper, Andy Troy, and Pat Martin. Dedicated to Jake and Joseph Moore, the men of tomorrow. We don't know who those people are. We think maybe they are nephews or something.
Yeah,
some relatives of Alan Moore.
Just some other people he knew named Moore.
We did try to pick that up, but we did try to look that up, but we were not able to dox Alan Moore's non-famous relatives.
Not this time.
Did you
Not
notice?
this time.
Did you notice that there's a credit for traffic in here? Because it says 4 Image Comics. Traffic. Ronna Coulter. What kind of traffic are they talking about?
Wait, where? Oh. Yeah, that is weird.
It must be something to do with the distribution because it comes after the distribution.
I know fucking nothing about distribution of comic books. It seems very arcane and baroque.
It's real dumb.
Very
inscrutable.
Going through some upheaval at this time.
Oh,
there was the contraction where a lot of different smaller distributors were all absorbed by Diamond in the late 90s and early 2000s, and now we've seen Diamond's monopoly broken, and that has had its own effects.
I mean, because DC has a separate distributor, right? And that's why their books technically come out on Tuesday now. Which
they're fixing that.
Okay.
Back to Wednesday.
Okay.
Tomorrow, I think.
Speaking of Diamond.
So, but yes, for 5 years or almost 4 years now, they've been coming out for Tuesdays. It's been a whole thing.
Yeah.
And now Marvel is with Simon and Schuster.
Oh, damn.
As well as Diamond, I think. It's a whole thing.
Damn. Simon and Schuster's just gobbling up all stuff everywhere anyway. Man, book distribution in general, because like all of the publishing houses, there's only like 3 true publishing houses.
It's a good thing we have anti-monopoly laws.
Yeah.
Excellent.
They work great.
One thing about Diamond,
out of hell free cards.
Apparently Diamond recently found a shit ton of boxes of the original Spawn Batman that they lost in the 90s, and they've
they re-released them. Yeah.
Wow.
I picked one
Perfect
up this
time
last week.
That's awesome.
Well, we have an episode on that. You can go back and check it out. It is a great companion piece with the episode, I think, immediately preceding it, which is about Spawn Houdini, in which we discover across both episodes in real time that they're the exact same comic.
Unfortunately, you read enough Spawn, and sometimes it kind of whoops back.
Well, it's like poetry; it rhymes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just like the prequels.
Or in this case, you run out of time and you need a script for the main Spawn comic, and you let an intern write one basically on Frank Miller's layout for Spawn Batman.
Yeah.
So,
are you sure you mean prequels, Johnny, and not sequels? Because the sequels all got to blow up a big Death Star. So, no big Death Star explosions.
On that episode 1 documentary when George Lucas is explaining why episode 1 exists, he's like, it's like poetry, it rhymes. That's like his famous thing.
I remember that documentary.
That was such a good one. They don't do them like that anymore. Now they're like, everything was perfect and great, and like we all loved each other. And it's like, no, I love those documentaries where you see the tension and like I don't know, just you see them down. That one was really good, and all those old Lord of the Rings ones too. But you never see anything like that about modern movies because now they're just like.
You could say that we don't get them like that anymore about a lot of things Star Wars related, but this is not a Star Wars podcast.
That's true. I was trying to turn everything to something.
Well, we did get the Bad Batch, so we got that going for us.
I haven't watched that. I haven't watched the Star Wars thing
going for us. I don't know if that's how I describe it.
It just ended, so technically not. So I guess we had
the only good new Star Wars thing is The Last Jedi. Anyway,
Last Jedi's great. Great movie.
I'm just gonna throw that one out there, and
I'm gonna disagree and say the only good new Star Wars thing is every new Star Wars thing, because I'm unapologetically in love with Star Wars. So
it's nice to meet someone who still has hope in their life.
Hey, that's literally what the whole entire thing is about. Is hope.
That's right.
Let me know if you can spare any wonder.
Yeah.
If I could give you a transfer of wonder right now, I totally would.
Wow.
It's like Spawn's meter, and mine's just gone down over the years, and it's at 0.
I've been out in the back of the alley eating all the earthworms to get my necroplasm back up. So I got wonder to spare.
Oh boy, that's
we're
another
coming up
thing.
on that.
Yeah, you're right, George. There is no power meter in this entire thing because, and I don't think the power meter appears.
I don't think Alan Moore gives a shit about it.
He does pay some lip service to it, though. He says, "I use a little bit of power. It should be fine."
Yeah.
The rules
Spawn
of the
gets
power
back
meter
with the
make no sense.
K7 Letha. He arises from the water just in time to see Sansker posing before That's Amore.
Oh yeah.
And that's a pretty fun pinup style splash of Sansker there going into the double page spread with Sam catching up on him. Here is where he's about to start his monster transformation.
Yeah.
He takes off his clothes again, and he's covered in tattoos like anybody from the 90s. I'm surprised he waited until 1997 to get those tattoos because he's covered in like just weird tribal tattoos and shit.
He's only missing the barbed wire. He's almost there. Almost. But
almost there. He looks like a WWE like third tier guy from exactly this time period. But he starts to monster out.
He's got that thing that I love about late 90s comics with the neck region and the clavicle that doesn't make any logical sense. It's like
it's just like it's like 1,000 tendons.
It's like the muscle version of Spawn's cape. If you're trying to make it make physical sense, you're doing it wrong. It's great.
This shot of him here, that's the bottom half of one of the pages where Sam is confronting him, and Sansker is saying he took a withdrawal at the blood bank. His face looks like Beavis.
It does.
But at least it kind of makes sense that he's getting more teeth.
Yeah, exactly.
He has a lot of teeth there. Also, this is probably the most delicately AIDS in comic books was ever covered in the 90s. Just like briefly mentioning a sex disease, so he's gonna get strained blood. Whereas if you have like Shadowhawk, where they fucking killed Shadowhawk with HIV blood.
It's just wild that apparently in the Spawn universe that will kill vampires. Like, I like that Alan Moore is taking the step to address what goes on with vampires and AIDS. You know, somebody
had to
addressed it.
Somebody had to.
So the next double page spread of Spawn swimming down into the water.
A+.
Very
great.
Cool.
Yeah, I like this cloaked Spawn's pretty cool. I like him in the cloak,
just wearing
the tattered clothes.
The extra clothing by the from the really big dude.
Yeah.
Also, but he went swimming with his shoes on.
He didn't go swimming. He got thrown in the water.
He got attached to a car that ran off the pier.
Yeah, weirdly, he didn't think to take his shoes off as he was getting thrown in the water.
I mean, I would have.
Yeah, first thing I would do.
Yeah, first thing if I was in a car, first thing, roll down the windows. Second thing, take off my shoes.
I mean, he doesn't really have to breathe.
No,
he does sometimes, though.
Yeah, he does sometimes. That's what I was always kind of wondering what his relationship would be with underwater would be. Like,
he also has a giant hole in his chest.
Yeah,
I don't think
he sure does.
He might not even have lungs.
Are you surprised that something about Spawn's anatomy is inconsistent and doesn't make perfect sense? Because I'm shocked, given a track record that's happened so far in every issue of Spawn.
Is this not Grey's Anatomy?
I thought it was. That's the gold standard for medical information.
Speaking of things that are totally real and totally make sense, as we turn the page from Spawn going for a swim with his shoes on.
Sansker kicking a fucking hole through this dude's actual thorax.
It's just like at a 90-degree angle. It's just like straight out.
I thought you were gonna say the inconsistency of the Illinois sticker on the trunk, since it was Hoffman Estates the first time we saw it, and now it's Wilmette or Wilmington.
Well, Or maybe they visited it twice.
You know,
Wow.
No prize explanation there. It's just the other side of the
side of the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they visited Ohio a lot.
Yeah.
Or not Ohio. I'm
Illinois.
so sorry. How could I be so fucking cruel as to call Illinois Ohio?
Oh no.
I'm sorry to any state that has to be called Ohio, including Ohio.
More like Ohio.
I do like that this little frowny face appears everywhere. Like it's on ties. It was on the tie that Violator had. It's on Sam's tie. It was actually one of the stickers on the trunk in the first issue.
Is it Tony Daniel doing like a tiny little Watchmen reference? I think Tony Daniel just thinks he's cute and is like, "Ooh, I'm gonna put the Watchmen."
I just chalked it up to Tony Daniel being like, everybody's got smiley faces. Maybe I'll do a yuck face.
Is that guy holding a batarang?
Yeah. I think that's the necktie. I think that's his tie.
Oh yeah, that is what it is.
And that face is his tie pin. At the bottom, we get a really cool Spawn face. The digital bubbles and the like gradient looks really cool there.
With that shoelace right there.
And almost reminiscent of like a Ben Templesmith or a Simon Kudransky, like very sort of atmospheric look. We get that quote that I used at the beginning, and then we get the page of Spawn finally nude.
See, look at this. Figured out when to take his shoes off this time.
Gloriously.
With the Letha bursting out. I gotta say, this page may be one of my favorite pages we've seen in any Spawn comic yet. It's so fucking metal. With like Spawn just like the suit all looking so sick.
Yeah, it's real good.
He becomes in the Feud around 300 he gets naked again for like he has this like he basically loses his suit, so he gets constructed out of stuff around him,
like barbed wire and skulls that are actually just laying around him.
And we refer to him as All Natural Al. So this is All Natural Al.
He's doing the pose. Have you guys ever seen the Dolph Lundgren Punisher movie?
I've never seen it.
Have I? I don't know if I have.
It's the best Punisher movie.
I haven't.
It's so hard to find, but it fucking rules so hard. It's legitimately kicks ass. But it ends with this like long shot of Frank Castle fully nude, hanging sack, and it's just like the most nude Dolph Lundgren. And it's that same vibe right here, and I just think this looks so cool. The Letha looks so dope here.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of one big boot Spawn and like one big gauntlet era. I think that Tony Daniel really nails it.
Yeah, it looks cool as hell. And we're gonna get a classic Todd McFarlane splash page because it's gonna be vertical.
Literally a splash page.
Yeah.
Yes, he splashes up out of the water. See?
Yeah. I love this pose. I love everything about it.
So
awesome.
In reference to what we were just talking about, because you see Spawn is facing towards us, and so technically his butt is facing towards Sam. So I like to say that I like to think that that Sansker's saying "oh my" because there's a big juicy ham just like filling his view.
That's right.
That's true.
A couple of clapping Hellspawn cheeks. We saw what's under there down under the water, and he's definitely not shy about flapping his cheeks.
Like I almost read it in a George Takei voice.
Oh my! He busts out, put him down. Sansker. Sam is being attacked by the vampire, and here is where Sansker starts to go like full monster. He says, "I've had such success in eliminating my competitors as a monster hunter. I decided to take it one step further." And he explains that his master plan this whole time has been to eliminate all the monsters from an entire city and take it over himself as the Monster King. He knows about the Violator, which we know Violator was afraid of Sansker earlier. He seems to know a lot about what Spawn is. And we get some very cool moments of Spawn and Sansker fighting as like Spawn douses him in his green flames using his magic.
Yeah, generally tries to conserve his power, but I'll make an exception.
Exactly. And then Sansker takes his next step into monster shape, where he becomes this gray sort of Nosferatu, bat-like kind of creature. And They fight some more. We're getting kind of the boss fight where, when you're doing a boss fight in a game and you get through stage 1 and then the boss mutates.
Yeah.
You get through stage 2.
Yeah,
the boss
it's
mutates
faster.
again. Exactly. And finally, Sanskar is fully exposed as this like sort of Naga-like creature where he's his whole bottom half of his body is this coiled serpent, and the top half is completely monstrous and scaly.
That was what the toy was.
Yeah, the toy was the snake-like Sanskar, which was awesome. With the big fangs. So you guys said you were toy collectors,
I had
or at
some of
least
the
aware
toys.
of the toys.
I had some of
At
the
least
toys.
aware of the toys.
Yeah, I physically get the more recent toys, but like when I was little, it was just like, ooh, I like those toys, and then was very quickly moved away from them.
Yeah, I think the new ones are super cool. I think Pierce has some of the newer villains and Spawn on his throne. Saw some of them in some of the stores this weekend, and they look great. I have a bunch of the vintage ones myself. The Sanskar one I never had, but I always thought it looked so dope.
I remember now
wanna
that you
go
mentioned,
back
I
and
used to remember
find
the
it.
snake action figure. I didn't put it together that it was this.
So basically, now Sanskar is saying that he knows when he's beat. He knows that he has to move on. This is where he explains he has a plan for Hong Kong in 2070. And his final parting gift to Spawn is that he says, "You're going to know what monsters know. Welcome to the night, my friend. Welcome to the night." Basically saying, well, I say basically a lot, saying that Spawn has now been exposed as a monster and not just some kind of young blood or hero or mysterious vigilante. The people actually know that he's a demon now. And
so what does Spawn do? Goes for a swim.
Jumps back off that pier.
It's funny that Sam is like, "Hey, wait, don't do it, man." Yeah. Sam says, "Wait, don't do it, man." As if Spawn is going to die just from going in the water. I mean, maybe.
And then
is it?
We also get.
Is it the East River? Is it that dirty?
Yeah,
we get
exactly.
Tom O doing some of his favorite word.
Yes. No.
Normally because it's so short, but he has to draw it a lot.
Has to make a meal out of it.
I do like the drawing of Spawn jumping in the water. That's a cool pose.
It is great.
With the chains kind of wrapping out around it. And the final page, the final image is Spawn sinking into the water, saying that he's going back to his alley because down there it's always night. Welcome to the night.
Yeah, the shadows
don't. With that, we've come to the end.
The shadows don't give a goddamn, so.
No, they don't. So we've come to the end of Blood Feud. Pretty much the one and only kind of time that Sanskar has played a role, but we do know, especially thanks to our regarding Spawn friends here, that some of these elements will return in Spawn. And I think that's one of the things that Spawn is best at. And the creators of Spawn that get brought in are often make their names by doing is having that attention to detail of something that happened before and latching on to those little bits and bringing them forward into a new story.
You mentioned earlier Grant Morrison. It's a very Grant Morrison thing where if Grant Morrison's going to be writing a book, you know damn well that they're going to be like, I'm going to choose this random bullshit from 40 years ago, and it's going to be the main focus.
It all counts.
And it's real exciting to see the new Spawn writers doing that exact same thing, being like, hey, remember this that didn't go anywhere? Well, guess what? It's the most important shit in the world right now.
Yeah. So we may not have seen the last of Sangster one day. You never know.
You never know.
Yeah.
One of us could bring him back.
Yeah.
Call us. Todd, we'll bring him back.
Yeah. We'll be the 4 writers of the new Sangster Limited series.
I'm a little not surprised that he hasn't come back, considering that the rights situation of Sanskar, not that Alan Moore probably gives a shit, but considering that the Neil Gaiman lawsuit will eventually happen, maybe it's just like, oh, maybe
not
I
gonna touch
better
that.
not touch that again.
I'm sure now that if he ever tries to ask, that Alan Moore is just like, I don't care about comics anymore. Just no. What? No.
You probably wouldn't remember who Sangster was.
What?
He's
That's
written
a
so
great
much
point.
stuff.
I wrote what?
Yeah, he'd be like, what?
What is Spawn?
And who are you?
Yeah. Is he one of the?
Yeah. How'd you get this landline?
So we do get in the back matter. I mean, the cool thing is seeing Alan Moore's breakdowns.
They're adorable. Yeah, they're really cute. Yeah. They're fun.
I like the way that he draws the K7 Letha not on Spawn. It's kind of adorable.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a tadpole.
Yeah. But it is interesting that there's a couple of pages here that are pretty much exactly like Tony Daniel uses them sort of shot for shot, more or less, right?
Yeah. I love how mad Spawn looks when he's ripping up the flyer in this. He's just like, he's like a little kid having a tantrum.
Yeah. The letters columns I don't think are too crazy. There is one in Spawn number 1 that goes, "Dear Sir, I know I'm a mere nothing to you.
Oh my God.
But I am still one of your many long-term fans. I haven't been collecting comics for any more than 3 years, but I like to believe that I know quality when I see it. I see no quality in your books any longer. Now, as a 13-year-old, I will not address you. I will not address you in the manner in which many others do, most older, some younger, and some whose ages are left unsaid.
This is a kid who's used to having to meet a word count for essays.
Yeah.
But yeah, he basically just says that what you're doing with Spawn is reprehensible. And that he bought Nightmare number 1, Wetworks number 7, Wizard number 46, and 2 copies of Spawn number 30. And he was disgusted by Spawn number 30.
Disgusting.
I don't even remember which issue that was.
30 is it's Spawn Across America.
Oh, okay. Well,
I believe.
We haven't gotten to that one yet, so it's nuts to my brain. Spawn number 30 is the KKK one. Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah.
But this 13-year-old.
Right, well, suddenly I'm kind of on this 13-year-old side a little bit. It's not a great issue.
Oh wait, is that the one with the lynching cover? Like the cover is Spawn lynched. Oh,
where Spawn turns the KKK leader black.
Oh, jeez.
Oh boy.
It's
boy.
It's quite a story.
Oh, I forgot that. Oh my God.
Oh,
some classic. I don't talk about politics. Todd McFarlane.
Yeah, classic.
One of the other letters is mad at Todd for stealing all the X-Force artists. Which Todd's like, I didn't mean to do it. It just so happens they worked on X-Force. And then, there is in Spawn number 4. They're saying like, we made an error, so here's the real panel. So it says every once in a while an error occurs in the production of a comic book. These in last month's Blood Feud number 3 on page 12, panel 1, a word in the third balloon was accidentally left out. Here's the balloon as should have seen print. The funniest thing about it is that it says in Blood Feud, but Feud is spelled wrong. So in doing their correction, there's another error. And also, one of the letters columns, we find out that the original name of Cygor is Apex.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
Apex. And
he says, going bi-weekly will enable me to develop the character of Apex without making the readers wait a month between each issue. But which I'll say this, there's not much development of that character at all. So.
There's really not.
It's very much like I like to complain a lot about during, what was that, like the mid-50s issues when they started introducing Cygor. There were like 2 pages about Cygor is coming. And it's just like always like 2 pages. And it's like, when is he going to get here? He's never got
for a while.
It was like that scene in Monty Python where every time they look back at the other end of the field, he's started all the way back at the tree line.
My favorite part about the back matter of these ones is the narrative of the shitty Spawn SNES game being made.
Oh yeah.
Because if you read the letters, they're like, "Oh, it's going to be good." There's also a PlayStation one coming. There's also we keep mentioning that the 16-bit one's not going to be as good as the PlayStation one. It's just funny that in the Terry Fitzgerald and the blah blah blah, it's just like kind of follows this arc of like them putting the finishing touches on the shitty Spawn SNES game. I'm assuming it's shitty. I'm sure it might have its fans. I don't know.
Well, I mean, Spawn Hunter just put their collection of Spawn video games up, and it seemed all like Game Boy based. And I don't even know if the SNES one ever came out. Did it ever come out?
There are a couple. Yeah, the SNES one was the first Spawn game.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it plays like all the side-scrolling like X-Men and Spider-Man games.
Yeah.
It's not very
fun.
It's not bad.
It's fine. It's exactly what it needs to be. We were just on Play Comics Cast talking about Spawn in the Demon's Hand.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Which I emulated it and played it, and that's not a good game.
Yeah.
Was it the Dreamcast one?
That's the Dreamcast one.
Okay.
Where it's like an arena shooter.
Yes. I played it either it was also an arcade cabinet or someone just made it into an arcade cabinet.
I think it was.
And I played that at a Comic-Con.
It has like 40 characters in it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I think I played as Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like trying to do like a Smash Brothers type thing before Smash Brothers, but it does not succeed. It's really hard to play.
I like that in the back of some of the issues they're advertising Bad Boy Con 95.
I thought Johnny was going to say his favorite thing was this DEF CON 2, which took place in his hometown of Tulsa.
I know, I didn't see that. Yeah, it was Tulsa.
By Wizards Asylum. I know from Wizards Asylum.
I know Wizards Asylum.
Oh, I love Bad Boy Con. Appearing in person, Dennis Rodman.
Yes.
Along with Al Simmons, a.k.a. Spawn. Both enemies of America at this point. I have to say I love all the toy shots, especially in the back of number 4. They show some of the new like Wetworks figures they're doing.
Yeah,
Youngblood figures. I have the Crypt figure with all the weapons and shit. That guy rules.
And then there's Wolverine. Wolverine Puck, or whatever.
The funniest thing about that dude, Troll, is that I was reading just this weekend Squadron Supreme, the old Mark Grunwald series, and he looks exactly like fucking Tom Thumb, who is one of the members of the Squadron Supreme, which would be a weird but totally on-brand thing for Rob Liefeld to rip off.
Yeah, like nobody cares
down
about
to the
this.
hoverboard thing. Yeah,
my favorite letter was the one where they were like, it's really easy to find these figures. All you got to do is get rain checks, trade with other people, get a job at Walmart. You can get these figures really easily. I was like, what?
I mean, my favorite letters are the ones where it's women lamenting that their husbands are spending all of their money on Spawn toys and asking Todd McFarlane to please make less.
I just remember how big toy scalping was. I mean, maybe it still is, but just like, was in the 90s. Like I remember going to the comic shop and you'd see those figures at ridiculous prices. We go to like, any kind of like comic shop or things like that.
Listen, the things that we did when we didn't really have the internet.
Right.
Wait a minute. We have to go back for a second because I'm looking at this 13-year-old boy's letter and we didn't get to why he's actually upset.
Okay, read it.
It says, what you're doing with Spawn is reprehensible. It says all comics he bought. I bought 2 copies of Spawn number 30. One probably to read and one to save for his kid's college.
Yep.
Yeah. It says, I opened a copy of Spawn, and as I usually do, glanced to the page on my left. I was utterly disgusted. Why should you be so bold as to ask? Because your name doesn't even come first under the art credits anymore. This kid was totally happy with all the weird KKK racial politics shit.
Yeah.
I was almost like, this kid knows what this is kind of based. Nope. He was just mad that Greg Capullo's name is listed first. Wow.
That's why we read the physical copies. This
fucking
is
Zoomers.
Here's the thing. If you could put out a compendium of just the spawning ground, I would buy it in a second.
Oh, it would be amazing.
I would buy it in an absolute heartbeat. But
there's like one letter that makes it seem like maybe the whole reason he did this series is so that people didn't think Spawn was a vampire anymore. Like he's like, I understand that there's a lot of similarities, but I was like, is that why you did this miniseries, just to like show people that Spawn isn't a vampire?
Oh, but he's part vampire somehow.
Yes, yeah.
So that's invalidated.
He's part of the Because when did that? I know he is part vampire, but is that something that's later?
It has to be later.
I think it's like 200. It's saying like 200 something. Probably whenever blood was first introduced.
Is it after? Is it after Spawn Resurrection?
Probably.
It feels like it might be. I don't know.
That's the part that's the hardest for me because I don't have that. I haven't gotten there on the compendiums, and like the single issues in those at that time are like a lot of them are impossible to get. Yeah.
But then they got that humble bundle that's got all those in them.
That's true. We got a letter here from a wife who's trying to figure out from Todd McFarlane what her husband sees in Spawn shit. And he says, "Dear Laura, like alcohol, Spawn can be both enjoyed or overindulged. Excessive consumption of alcoholic beverages, like sweet berry wine, which is Spawn's favorite drink."
The 1989 Strawberry Ripple.
That's what Conrad was drinking, right. Yeah.
That's exactly right. He says he could make believe that he was out buying the additional 24 toys. So if he was to save the $7 24 times, man, Spawn toys were $7 in 1995.
Yeah,
no wonder my mom was like, "Sure, I'll buy that shit."
That's insane.
That's wild. Wow, what a time.
But that was also $1995, and you know what?
It's like $85 now.
These were $225 a piece in $1995. So
I remember just the Spawn toys. Just the packaging was so huge compared to everything else.
Yeah.
Just the packages were giant, and like they really drug you in.
Kind of everything about the packaging and the toys themselves was like built to make you, as a kid, just go, "What is that?" And
exactly.
I need it.
Yeah.
Also, basically created the adult collector market for toys. I mean, up until that point, there were adult collectors, obviously, but we were, they were buying the same toys that little kids were buying. If you wanted Star Wars toys, there wasn't Star Wars Black Series or, deluxe figures. It was just the same 3 3/4 inches figures. So the Spawn toy line was one of the first ones that really was sort of marketed with the detail and the sculpting in mind before any kind of action figure features or anything like that. Because Marvel was still doing Toy Biz at this time. Marvel was owned by Toy Biz at this time. So those figures, while I love them, were very simple.
They were pretty cheap too. Really I feel like they break a lot. I feel like mine broke a lot. They were just kind of cheaper made.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, they were made for kids, so they were cheap and they were made to be played with, and you broke them and you moved on. I, on the other hand, cherished them and collected them and saved them because I have things going on in my brain.
I will say that Cyclops with the lineup was like a classic. Like that was like a classic toy.
So good.
And the Wolverine, I remember the Wolverine that had the little push-up claws. Those were awesome.
When they first came out with those X-Men toys, wow.
There was at some point, they were all really cheap at a KB Toys when I was a kid, and I got a whole bunch of them. And so that was always pretty fun.
Sure.
By the end of its existence, KB Toys was almost pretty much exclusively a Toy Biz graveyard.
Right, it was.
So you could get like dozens of... and now if you... like, I'm the kind of person who also collects Toy Biz now, and there are certain ones that were like KB exclusive that were just repaints that they were putting out en masse, that now you have a harder time finding them because they were only at KB toy stores, and those are gone.
I remember I got almost a complete set of Waterworld figures for like 50 cents each when I was a kid. It was great because they're like the same scale as the Jurassic Park figures, so I can just kind of use them as extra Jurassic Park guys. But
did it come with the turns urine into water machine?
Yeah, that was the action feature. He like squirted it out. Yeah, exactly.
Or little cans of Smeat.
I mean, the thing that was great about just any of those Toy Biz toys, though, is like that's the kind of stuff that made me a fan of like weird characters. Like I got a random toy because it said X-Men on it, and then I went, "What the fuck is this guy?"
Yeah.
Oh, guess I gotta go find out. I'll spend my like $10 of allowance at the comic book store and like figure it out.
That's always a fun conversation to have, is people who are like, "Man, I just got into X-Men," and it's always like, hold on a second. How many thousands of dollars do you have to spend on X-Men every month? Because you're gonna need it.
Exactly.
It's everybody keeps trying to reproduce the success that X-Men has of just being wild, and everybody's like, "Yeah, sure, it's X-Men, I'll get it." But
so as we've reached the end of Blood Feud, we like to kind of recap and just throw out our final thoughts. So, John, I'll start with you. Final thoughts on Blood Feud. What did you think? Ups, downs, likes, dislikes?
I agree with, I don't remember who said it, but I agree. I think it's a little stretched out. Like, it's pretty, like, when you go through the plot, it's pretty simple and, like, it's just, like, stretched out with a lot of the same, like you're saying, people repeating information, or, I really like it. I just comparing it to, like, Violator, I think was a tighter story and a lot more bombastic and fun, coming from the same writer. But I liked what they tried to do with it. I remember first reading it, being into the, like, bait reveal that it's not the suit killing people, but it's got some great splash pages, and it's like you said, it's a little more horror bented, a little more bloody, which is cool. It's not I like the introduction of the idea that this suit is called K7 Letha, because what a crazy name. And I just love what that implies, that there's, like, different letters of these things and, like, different numbers, and just, like, I love that Alan Moore can do that when he comes into Spawn, and just, like, either give something a name, or just, like, in that issue 8 with Billy Kincaid, just like, or where he's dragging through hell and just throwing off, oh yeah, that's where the psychic ice shrimp live, or, like, that's where the, and just throwing things off. And just, like, being able to do that, he's so good at that. And while I like it, I wish I had a little more hell stuff in it, I guess. I do like those little glimpses we get of hell with the suit, but it's just a little too... It was not my favorites. It's very street level, which is what Spawn was at that time. That's what it was. And it's less... at least it doesn't have, like, a big boss behind a desk. Quite doesn't have that, because usually that's what you'd have. But yeah, I mean, I liked it. It's not it wouldn't be the first thing I throw at somebody if they're trying to get into Spawn, but it's a fun little diversion. And I like the stuff with the suit. That's definitely the strongest thing, and I think that's the stuff Alan Moore seemed like he was most interested in. And Sangster kind of doesn't really leave that big of an impression, really, to me. But yeah, that's I guess that's my thoughts on it.
David, your thoughts?
I enjoyed reading it the first time, and kind of dreaded it as I was going into it the second time, because I was like, oh man, how far away is that? Oh, so I do agree with that. 80 pages would have been real nice instead of 100 pages. So if you're reading it once, it's great. It's a fun time. There's the purplest that Alan Moore has ever been. And just, like, his descriptions of stuff. I just love how outrageous the Tony Daniel art is. So I'll come back for that maximalism shit every single time. It's overall, I'd call it good. I wouldn't call it essential. It wouldn't be something that I'd throw at somebody for, hey, you wanna get into Spawn, read this. But what it contributes to the mythos, I think, is overall positive, versus, the actual story is a little unnecessary. So
it's like a mystery that you kind of already have solved.
Yeah,
and it's like you're. I don't know when they revealed he's a vampire, but I feel like I always knew. I don't know.
I think it's the third one. We just went through it, and I've already forgotten. I think it's the third one that they revealed that Sanskrit.
But it's very implied early on.
Yeah,
right.
Like, you're getting hints of it very early on.
Yeah, like it could have been like 2 maxi issues, like a big.
Yeah,
like those.
It could have been a 2-part. If it was in the main story, you feel like it would have been a 2-part.
Yeah,
right.
Or it could have actually been smushed into a 1-shot. I think. Take out some of Alan Moore's bigger flourishes, which I kind of love, because I'm a weirdo like that. But I mean, it could have been condensed down to just like one shot. That I think that would have worked better, because there's no resolution on what happened to Twitch, and there's a lot of things that happen that there's no reason for it to really have been there, I don't think.
Pierce, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that it's the kind of book that if somebody was like, I really like Venom, maybe I'd give it to them. And I'd be like, look, it's like kind of the same thing, I guess. I will say I do think the prelude kind of not ruins the 4 issues, but it does make you feel like, all right, well, it's not Spawn that's doing this. And as much as I like the flowery language, I love like that section where Kate Sevenletha is talking about being the Raptor Queen in the murder of scarves or whatever.
Yeah,
that's cool.
The she that devours.
Yeah, like that stuff's cool. I kind of also like I wish there were 20 less pages. I wish there was like 20% less writing on the pages. Because there's just a lot to take in and it's a little bit repetitive, but that's why we're covering all of this. I look forward to y'all's Spawn Blood Feud episode in the future.
Yeah. We'll look there.
George, what about you?
Yeah, I think you guys all summed it up pretty well. It's got really good moments that really stand out, both from Alan Moore and Tony Daniel. And Alan Moore, while he packs in a lot of language in this story, a lot of it is pleasant to read in the sense that it's like interesting, it's poetic, and it kind of captures something about the suit that we hadn't really seen before. I think that, David, you said that reading it the first time was really fun. Reading it the second time, brushing up on it, it felt a lot denser to me. Like that's kind of how I feel. And I think it's not necessarily an essential story, even though it has some things that wind up playing into Spawn as the series goes on. But not something I think I would hand to someone as their first Spawn story. If you are going through and reading Spawn, I think it's a good chapter to check in with.
Yeah. There's funny because there's like frequently on eBay they'll have just packed together Violator Blood Feud. You can just find that like packed together just like to sell because it's just something so people are always looking for.
Worth it in that case, especially if it's packed together.
If you get them together. I think that's how I bought them.
Yeah, you can get it for $12 or $15 shipped, and it's worth it. It's worth that.
I enjoy Alan Moore writing Spawn, so I recently tracked down the Spawn Badrock.
Oh boy,
crossover!
Wow.
The first one I ordered got canceled because when the person who sold it to me set it out for the driver to pick it up, it got rained on, so I had to literally buy it twice. So, I'm here for Alan Moore. I'm here for Spawn, and Alan Moore Spawn is good in my book.
So, before we wrap up, John and David, where can people listen to Regarding Spawn? When does it come out? Anything you guys want to talk about or plug? Now's your chance.
Yeah, please feel free.
Yeah, we come out every Friday at
4:20 in the morning.
4:20 a.m., baby. So you wake up on Friday.
AM.
Yeah, a.m.
Wow.
So you wake up and it's there. But yeah, every Friday. We haven't missed a Friday yet. Almost to.
Well, 90 episodes so far?
90 episodes so far,
90 numbered episodes, including random diversions into tangents occasionally that happens.
We weren't as smart as you guys. We didn't have as many banked up. We only had like 6 before we started, which was not smart. But now it's like you're laying the track in front of the train. But every Friday we do an episode. We cover 2 issues at a time. Usually, sometimes our format is an older one and a newer one. Recently, we've been doing 2 new ones just because we got a little bit behind because there's just so much stuff coming out.
Yeah.
We can find us on Instagram at Regarding Spawn Pod. Our email is regardingspawnpod@gmail.com if you want to hit us up.
Yeah. And you can actually find the podcast anywhere that you find podcasts. So
oh, yes, that too.
Don't even.
Hell yeah.
We're not exclusive to any one sort of site.
Until they pay us to be.
That's how we feel about it too. Yeah. Todd, if you're listening.
Yeah, Todd.
You could pay me to do a lot.
He used to start a Spawn podcast network, and like it'd be like Spawn's cape over the different logos. It'll be great. 5 or 6 shows,
Let's do it.
Well, careful. Now that you said it out loud, he won't be able to do it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If Todd himself decides to start a Spawn podcast, it's gonna ruin our analytics. I can tell you that.
Well, listen, any listeners that aren't already listening regarding Spawn, you should. It's always super fun, especially if you're looking to check in on those more modern issues, because it's going to be a decade before we get there.
Yeah.
Or if you
especially the amount of time we take talking about these things.
Or if you'd like to hear a Spawn podcast that sometimes is less than half about Spawn.
Yeah, and if anyone's here because they're following us and haven't listened to Spawnography, you guys do such a good job of just breaking down the history and just like because I think just because you both have a little more history about comics than we do, but I really love your show, just how you do the deep dives and really know your stuff. So that's really cool because we're kind of like more like two idiots stumbling in the dark trying to figure it out. Well, you guys have a little more of a light, which is cool. But you have
I have found myself oftentimes having to be like, I can't literally just repeat the Spawnography episode in this episode, and so I had to think about it a little bit before I talk, or else then it would just be that could be something we could do, Johnny. We could just listen to their episodes and then just talk about their episodes. And
okay,
Spawnography.
Yeah, Spawnography.
Respawnography.
Respawnography. There we go.
That's pretty good.
Keep that in the bank.
Well, for us, you can find us at Spawnography Pod or at Spawnography on Instagram or wherever. You can also find us wherever, podcasts are sold. And you can email us at spawnographypod@gmail.com. This one's going a little bit longer than we meant it to, but I think it's just because we're all having such a good time.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you.
I could do this for like a week, so.
Yeah. I want to thank you both. We'll have you on again in the future.
Of course, anytime.
Yeah.
And if you ever want us to talk some modern Spawn with you, we can be. See, that's where you can be like, we'll be you'll be the light in the dark for us, and we'll be like Spawn's doing what?
I mean, you did in one of your recent episodes, you did mention that you were all for space alien Spawn. Technically, you said you wanted to see the Spawn versus Xenomorph, but the Monolith series is technically Space Spawn right now, so that's
very true.
Something you could look into.
That's very true.
Very good.
Well, George, for Todd so loved the world,
he gave his only begotten Spawn.
Later, Hellspawn.
Spawnography!